Welcome to Reflections for anyone looking for just a little bit of church. After calming the Sea of Galilee in last week's Gospel reading, Jesus resumes his healings. This week he heals a little girl and a woman. Let's listen to Mark's Gospel. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered around him, and he was by the sea. Then one of the leaders of the synagogue named Jairus came, and when he saw him, fell at his feet and begged him repeatedly, "My little girl is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live." So he went with him, and a large crowd followed him and pressed in on him. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. She had endured much under many physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, for she said, "If I but touch his clothes, I will be made well." Immediately her hemorrhaging stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" He looked all around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." While he was still speaking, some people came from the leader's house to say, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the leader of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." He allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. And when they came to the house of the leader of the synagogue, he saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. When he had entered, he said to them, "Why do you make a commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. Then he put all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha, come," which means, "Little girl, get up." And immediately the girl got up and began to walk about. She was about 12 years of age. At this point, they were overcome with amazement. He strictly ordered them that no one should know this and told them to give her something to eat. Here ends the reading. I approach this reflection with humility. I'm not a female, and I suspect that there are many nuances to this story that my knowledge and experience cannot capture and articulate. Menstrual bleeding and a young girl coming of age are undoubtedly part of this reading. And the fact that the young girl is 12 and the woman has suffered from hemorrhaging for 12 years intertwines these two biblical women. And fully understanding the limits of being touched by or touching a man as a woman in Israel at that time is also a limit of mine. But I sense that these two scenes are filled with messages of fear and potential ostracization that were even greater in Jesus' day than today. But I do know that last week Jesus chastised the disciples for lacking faith with regards to the turbulent wind and sea. And this week, we see him react quite differently with those who show great faith. And yet these people probably only knew him from hearsay. The faith of Jairus and the bleeding woman result in two miraculous healings. The message is that anyone who comes to him with humility, honesty, a modicum of fear, and demonstrable faith, he responds with a healing. Interestingly, Jesus demonstrates more than healing powers. He too is humble. For instance, while he might react harshly when his cloak is touched and feels powers drained from him, he instead responds lovingly to the woman and says that her faith has made her well. And after healing the young girl, Jesus asks the 3 disciples and parents who are witnesses to keep the healing quiet. He is emphasizing his humility and loving kindness, as well as his infinite healing powers. But what if we beg Jesus for healing? Showing respect for him and believing in his powers, will we always get what we want? And if we sneakily reach out to his garment to tap his healing powers, even if it's just in our prayerful imaginations, will we get what we hope for? Do we need to be a 10 in our faith on a scale of 1 to 10 in order to tap into God's all-healing powers? I don't know the answers to all of these questions, but I do believe Jesus is the Son of God, and I trust that he has infinite powers that will be used in the right way for my family and my friends, even if those powers do not result in what I am hoping for or praying for. So this week, let's model the behaviors of the religious leader Jairus and the woman asking for healing. Let's use humility and directness in our words and actions toward our all-powerful God. And let's honestly and openly communicate our needs by showing a deep and trusting faith, and that we will accept his will. And just as importantly, let's react as Jesus did to those who seek our help. Let's go out of our way to help humbly and kindly until those being helped feel our love and have a sense that things are better. And all of God's children will say, Amen. Please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. My song choice this week is an old standby for me. Tim McGraw's Humble and Kind. I love the visuals as well as the lyrics. Enjoy.